Canadian kid gets beaten up.
Of course, then it's different. Then they'll get taken out of the home and the parents will get prosecuted. That's bigotry right there.
Yeah.
And that's why all of these years later, I'm still upset about it.
Yeah.
Because I love my country and I'm very proud to be part of Canadian life and part of that world. And I'm very proud to be a Canadian and to call myself Canadian. And it's a it's a country that I feel proud of. It's a great country. It's done a lot of great things, but I feel like it just spat in my face, and I was in a depression for many years after that because I felt like, well, then there's nothing I can do. I have to accept it. This is my life.
Yeah. But did anything change at home after you did this?
Well, the relationship with my mother became even worse than it was before. So
the violence, did it stop?
No.
The violence?
No. In fact, it got worse because now he was angry at me.
Yeah.
So he would just now he didn't even need a reason. He'd just see my face and he'd take off his belt and start whipping just because he's angry. So if I was home, if I would hear him come home, I'd run into a closet or under the bed, or I'd just hide.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't want, even though I knew he knew I was home.
Yeah.
And he would walk around the house looking for me, and he'd say, like, if I find you, I'm gonna beat you even more. And sometimes he would find me.
Yeah.
And he,
yeah,
would beat me for hiding. But sometimes he wouldn't, and then he would think that I wasn't home. But it was, obviously it got worse.
Did you have any freedom? Could you, like, go to friends' houses, or?
No, because at this point I was going to Islamic school, and none of my friends were in my neighborhood. And even if they were in my neighborhood, my mother was the head of the Islamic Studies department at this school.
Yeah.
She was like a beacon of the community. Everybody respected her. Yeah. Nobody's going to do anything against her.
Yeah.
Even if I did try to go to my friend's house, my friend's parents are going to be respecting my mom, and they're going to send me back.
Yeah.
But they weren't close by anyway, so it was, there was nowhere to go. Yeah. And if you already asked for help from your government and they already said, fuck you, what else am I going to do?
Yeah, you feel hopeless and helpless.
Totally hopeless and helpless, exactly. Yeah. So I just stayed like that for years until they eventually pushed me into an arranged marriage.
Was it a forced marriage?
Yeah, because my mom was so, like, we had such a terrible relationship. She hated me so much. She was so angry at me because she felt like I ruined her relationship with her husband.
Oh.
Because now I caused her problems. Because now he's saying to her, your daughter tried to put me in prison.
Yeah.
So she was angry at me because now I caused her problems. Yeah. So, she would tell me all the time how much she hated me. She would spit in my face. Like, she wasn't hiding it.
And she would still not tell you that that's my husband?
No, and not until later. And, but she would tell me, like, you ruined my life, and you caused me problems, and you brought shame on me, and stuff like that. So when she was pushing me to marry this man, I stopped resisting. This was, like, usually throughout my life, it's a series of me resisting, her breaking me down, just like going to the government and asking for help. That's me resisting, and then failing, resisting, failing, resisting, failing. And this is another one, pushing me to get married. I was trying to resist.
And you were, how old were you?
I was 19 years old.
Yeah.
And high school's finished, so obviously I'm not going to go to university or go to get a job or anything. So this is it now. It's time to get married, right? And
they didn't want you to go to university. They
No.
didn't, no.
What's the point?
Yeah.
Right? I was raised to be a good wife. You know, you learn how to cook, you learn how to clean, you learn how to take care of your husband, you learn how to be polite, you learn how to listen.
And you learn the religion.
And you learn the religion very much so that you can teach your children, so that they can go to heaven, so that you can go to heaven, blah, blah, blah. So, when my mother was pushing for me to marry this man, I said, I got to the point where I just said, I give up. I will finally just listen to her. I will follow her lead. I will...
And hope for the best.
Maybe she will stop hating me. Yeah. Maybe I'll find happiness.
And this is what the child-parent relationship is. Even though she's like this towards you all of your life, you still want kind of to please her, right?
Yeah, so much so that
maybe I'll get accepted one day, right?
When I had a daughter with that man, I named her after my mom. Yeah. Because I thought maybe that will make her love me. Yeah. You know, my whole life all I was doing was trying to get her approval and get her acceptance. Yeah. And I only found peace once I stopped caring about her approval or acceptance anymore. Yeah. But it was a constant unattainable goal anyway. Yeah. Because even if she says, if you do this, okay, you do that, and then there's always going to be more and more and more and more. Right?
Because when you're 19, you could have chosen to move away from home, right? Or you didn't know that was a possibility, or you felt
I definitely did not feel that was a possibility at all. No. These are the days before internet, even. So there was no.
You didn't know it. You literally didn't know it was a possibility.
I did not feel that was gonna. I would be killed. She would kill me.
Oh, that's why. But you knew that legally you could.
Well, I knew that legally I could go and be homeless on the street.
Okay.
You know, I had no support systems.
Yeah.
But also I was never raised.
The government doesn't help.
The government's already screwed me over.
Yeah, you don't.
I didn't feel like that was even an option.
No.
And when you are raised in the kind of home where you're not even allowed to ask questions.
Yeah, and you go to Islamic school where they don't teach about your rights.
I never had any independence in me at all. All I ever got taught was how to listen. Yeah. I never was taught how to think, how to make decisions, how to ask. My mother chose my clothes for me. I didn't make any decisions for myself ever. It was almost like military, like you just listen, you just follow, you just do what you're told. And so the idea of moving out on my own, even if I did have the capacity to do that, even if I did have the ability, to do that, she would have killed me. Yeah. For sure. I have no question.
Okay. You don't have any question. At that time, you knew that
100%.
That was going to
happen. Because she would tell me all the time.
Oh, she would?
Yeah, she would tell me exactly how it was going to happen. You know, I can kill you and bury you in the backyard, and if anybody asks where you are, I'll just say she went to Egypt. And it happened. I had friends like that they would just disappear. And then you'd say, where is Shazia? Oh, her parents took her to Pakistan. She got married there. And there's no Facebook, there's no email, there's nothing. So once your friend is gone, they're gone.
You don't know anything.
If they didn't have a chance to give you their address before they go, and they never do, of course, they just disappear. And honor killings is something very common, as you know, like thousands of cases every year. And in Canada, some people were actually prosecuted for it, like one Afghani family once, where he killed his 2 daughters. But of course, I'm sure there were thousands of cases. Yeah, so it was not like something so foreign or far-fetched, or that it was real. I wanted my mom's approval finally. Yeah. I thought if I listen to her, maybe she'll stop hating me so much. Yeah. And so I wasn't married to him for very long.
Was she loving at all? Not at all.
No, I don't, again, this doesn't have anything to do with them, but she just was not a maternal person. She never wanted to have children. She didn't like children.
Oh.
But because she was raised in a society where you get married and then you have children. That's what you do.
Yeah.
And my dad would cheat on her, so she would have children to force him to stay.
Yeah.
That's how I was born.
Yeah.
And she told my dad.
Are you the oldest?
I'm the youngest.
So you're the youngest.
So she told my dad that. So what happened was, she had my brother and my sister. She didn't like children. She didn't want them. And so then they went to go live in Saudi Arabia with my grandparents. For 2 years they were living there. And she didn't even care. She's just like, here, take my kids. And then...
Oh.
Yeah, like she's not a maternal person. And then that's when my dad told her that he wanted to get a divorce. So then she had another baby, and that was me. So then he felt like he had to stay.
But not for long.
Not for long. Eventually he got sick of it. My mom she's a very manipulative person.
Yeah.
And up until I met my dad, I think I was maybe 24, 25, the very first time I actually had a real conversation with him.
Is he also in Canada?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after I was separated from my mom, I finally contacted him and had a conversation with him, and I felt like he was the only person in the world that understood.
Oh.
Because my mom is she's a very manipulative person, and most people don't see that. They only see. So going back to the marriage now at 19, and my dad has nothing to do with us. I've never connected with him. He didn't even know I was getting married. And, soon after I got married to this guy, of course he's beating me up, and I'm used to getting beat up because I've been beat up my whole life. So it's not a big deal. So then I ended up marrying him to make her happy. And not long.
Who was he, and did you know him before that?
I didn't know him. My mom just chose him. She was very, very adamant. She really wanted me to marry him.
What did she tell you about him?
She said So my mom didn't marry an Egyptian man. This is the other aspect of this. So she always felt like she regretted not marrying a Muslim man because she thought that maybe that's why her and my dad got divorced. An Egyptian man. She thought that maybe that's why they got divorced, because he wasn't a good man, because he wasn't Egyptian.
Where was he from?
So he's from Palestine.
Okay.
But he was, like I said, he was agnostic. He wasn't really religious. But she wasn't either when they met. But anyway, she had a supremacy when it came to the religion. She felt Muslims were better than all other people. And also Egyptians were better than all other people.
Yeah.
So she really wanted me to marry an Egyptian man. And, where I was from in Canada, there's not many Egyptians there, right? And so this one, I didn't really understand what it was. Something about him, they connected, the two of them. And she really pushed for me to marry him. And I learned later that the reason why they connected so much was because he was a jihadi, and she respected that, and she thought that that was so honorable. He was such a good man.
Yeah.
He was a member of Al Qaeda, and he would fight with Bin Laden. He was involved in some bombings of American embassy in Africa, and lots of other...
Nigeria?
No, I can't remember. I think it was maybe Kenya. Yeah. And so...
Was he a jihadi already when you...
Yeah. I didn't know that, though. My mom knew, but I didn't know. So, at one point my mom had a nosebleed, and she was also coughing up blood at the same time. So I called 911, which was like 999 in England. I don't know what it is. So we called the emergency, and the ambulance came to get her. then I went with her to the hospital. This is the very first time I'd ever been out of the house without him. Because usually he's with me, or my mom was with me. This is the very first time. So we got to the hospital, the doctors took my mom to a room, and I was sitting in the waiting room for maybe less than a minute. And, you know, I remember it being very quickly, 2 people came in, and they started to talk to me, ask me, you know, is your name Yasemine? Is this the man? Are you married to this man? And I was like, yeah. Are you a doctor? Like, I didn't really understand what was happening. And then they told me that they said, come with us. We want to go to a room and talk to you. And they told me that they were from CSIS, which are like the Canadian CIA. And they told me that the man I was married to was a member of Al Qaeda, and they were following him because he entered Canada from Afghanistan with a fake Saudi Arabian passport, and they fear that he's in the country to cause some sort of terrorist attack, and they needed my help to...
How did they know that they could trust you?
I think that they had been following him from the beginning,
Yeah.
and maybe they did their research about me,
Yeah.
and they knew that I had tried to put my mother's husband in jail, and they knew that because all of this would have been in the records in the government, they would have had the information that I was trying to get out.
This,
and they read the transcripts that I had with social services where I was trying to say
quick. They were on him.
They were watching, but also this is pre 9/11, so we were very innocent and naive. You know, now if somebody tries to enter the country with a fake passport from Afghanistan,
they will get taken away.
Yeah, like this is too many red flags, right?
Yeah.
Especially a fake Saudi Arabian passport from Afghanistan is too much.
Yeah.
So,
and at this time he was still in Canada, right?
Yeah, all of this is in Canada.
But he's still living in Canada with you at this time. Yeah.
Yeah. They gave him refugee status.
After this?
Yeah. This is my country. Yeah. Yeah. They gave him refugee status, and and he was on social.
Are you joking? They knew he was Al Qaeda, and they gave him.
Yeah, because in Egypt he's considered a terrorist.
So he would be
So he can't go back home to his country.
Oh.
So therefore, he's a refugee.
Yeah. But then living a normal life, or
I didn't know what he was up to,
but after they gave him the status of being a refugee, then they didn't like.
I think they were following him.
Yes, they were following him. Yeah.
And I suspect that the man who was his best friend at the time, I suspect that he was an Egyptian man. I think he was working with the FBI, to be honest.
Yeah.
Now, when I look back and I read about it all and piece it together with what I remember, I can make the picture is more clear, right? But at the time, I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know who Bin Laden was. I didn't know what Al Qaeda was. I didn't know any of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it was all sort of unraveling slowly for me. But now that it's, almost 20 years later, I can look back and I can see, in retrospect, okay, now I understand what happened. And
did you see him before you married him, or you knew him at all before?
No.
When did you see him the first time? At your wedding?
At the engagement. Yeah.
And then you had a wedding?
Yeah, so segregated men and women separate.
Without music?
No, nothing, yeah. So you just basically sit there.
Yeah.
And everybody around me was eating. And I was sitting there crying. And then they come and they fix my makeup. And then I cry more, and then they fix my makeup. Everybody knew.
Yeah.
But like I said, my mother was a pillar of the community. Yeah. And arranged marriages, forced marriages is so normal in Islamic households.
Yeah.
Nobody's surprised, even though it's Canada. Everybody was conservative of the people that we were friends with.
Yeah.
I think back now, like how alone I felt. And now the millions of girls that I know have been through the same thing, and it's just how sad it is that each one of us felt like we were completely alone and helpless. But I think with social media now, we're able to speak up and connect with each other, and to warn each other, and to support each other if they want to get out, and how they can get out. Like at the time, I really did feel like I had no choices. So now I think it's different for girls.
It's really difficult for me to see, because to understand this, and I think a lot of Western people would not understand how you feel, and doesn't understand how other people feel now being in these communities, because they say, but we have rights, we have freedom, we have democracy, we have equal rights for women and men, and you could get a divorce, you could whatever, and they don't understand that this social control that has become this thing that we talk about in Denmark a lot, that when you're in these communities, you don't feel you have a choice. You don't see an end to it. You don't see a way out of it.
No.
At all.
And it's different. Conservative communities, people from other conservative communities can understand. So if I speak to somebody who was a Mormon or a Jehovah's Witness or Westboro Baptist Church or Hasidic Jew, you know what I mean? Orthodox communities that are tight like that, they understand.